Hi, I'm Barry from Power Equipment Discounters, and today we are going to be reviewing the Ferris range of zero turns. Now what we've got here today is the IS3200Z. This is the biggest platform Ferris in the petrol engine range that you will see, and we're going to be talking about some of the differences that make Ferris a really good brand and what really separates them from all the other brand of zero turns out there. The first thing is, obviously you'll notice it's a nice dark red color and it looks like a big machine. It's got that imposing look about it which says, hey, this is a quality made zero turn mower. Ferris is made in the USA and it is owned by Briggs & Stratton. Just a little bit of history on the company. They've been making zero turns for a long time and they make really good quality zero turn mowers. The first thing you can see looking at the machine is what really separates Ferris is the suspension. They are the only zero turn in the world which has proper suspension. Now, why do we need suspension? A lot of people will tell you it's a sales gimmick or it's just a gimmick that Ferris has on the market to separate them from other brands. That's not really true. We have suspension in a Ferris to allow us to do a couple of things. It stops operator fatigue, number one. If you're on this machine 8 hours a day mowing lawns that are rough or bumpy, then the suspension is going to make sure that when you get off the machine at the end of the day, you feel a whole lot fresher and you're able to mow for longer periods at a time without taking a break. The second thing is quality of cut. The suspension does not affect the quality of the cut. Its sole purpose is to isolate the user from the machine movement. So you can't even see the suspension on this. I'm jumping up and down, but what's happening there is the machine is moving around me, but the cutting deck is remaining flat. So you still get that great quality finish and cut on your machine, but you have the comfort of suspension. So if you're mowing rougher ground, it means you can mow at full speed and still get a great cut. That's the second biggest benefit of suspension. This machine mows at 19.3 kilometers an hour and will do 7.2 acres an hour. Now that's great. Every manufacturer tells you how fast their machines go, how many acres they cut per hour, and the tests are done on a cricket field like you see behind me. That's great, but it's not real world. Real world is cutting on the side of a road. It's cutting a paddock. It's cutting a whole heap of rough ground. And you will see that you can't mow at 19.3 kilometers an hour with most zero turns out there and stop from being bumped around in the seat or slowing down. There's always something you have to do. With the Ferris, the suspension means that you can mow at 19.3 kilometers no matter what the ground you're mowing and no matter what you're cutting. So that is a massive advantage of suspension, and it's a reason you should seriously consider this brand. We're going to have a look at some details on the machine, moving from the front to the back, and I'm going to take you through them now. The first thing you'll notice is the independent suspension arms. So this model has an independent suspension for each front wheel. Now that's great because that gives you serious maneuverability around things, still moving very quickly, and you get the best use of each shock absorber. Now these are all adjustable as well. You can adjust the suspension on this machine on the front end. The next thing you'll notice is the construction. It is a tubular frame welded chassis, 1/4 inch thick. Obviously all powder coated for stopping rust. This is something that is well built and very, very strong. So like I said, it is made in America and it is very well built. You'll notice on the front end as well, very thick casters, very big front tires as well. So the front end is well built. The next thing which I'm going to show you on the front end is the deck lift. Now Ferris uses a foot lift over here, all the way down. I'm a bit short. So with the foot lift over here, it's just foot operated. There's a release lever here which is really simple to use, and you just drop it back. There's obviously a lot of different height settings which I'll show you work off a pin. So you just pop the pin where you want to go and release that deck. It's really easy. It's got a very heavy duty spring here which makes it really easy to lift it up and down, bearing in mind that this machine is capable of carrying up to 72-inch cutting decks. We're looking at a 61 here, but you can get them in 72, and even with the 72, I've tried it, it's really easy to lift that deck up and down. That means while you're mowing, if you see something you need to lift the deck up with, you don't stop, you just simply push your foot down on the pedal, release it, you go back to where you were, and the parking brake works really well. It clicks on itself, you can just push it down and the parking brake's on. You don't have to physically move anything. To release the brake, it's simply very easy. So the foot lift works well on this machine. I like it. The parking brake's over here, easy to put on and off, and it's right next to your deck lever, so you don't forget where it is. You're not hunting around trying to find it. It's right there, very easy. Steering levers, easy, obviously all adjustable, but you can see I've got heaps of room, very comfortable operating environment here. Okay, let's talk about the cutting deck. What makes a Ferris cutting deck so good? First of all, it's called an ICD deck, which is Intelligent Cutting Design. Why is the cutting deck so good? So first of all, you've got a flap here, a big rubber flap, and you can lock it up in the up position. It's very, very thick, so you're not going to be breaking that off if you're running up against a fence or you hit a tree by accident. And it gives you really good protection out the side, so you're not going to be doing doing the operator any harm. You've got a really wide opening here, so if you're cutting longer or thick grass, the whole deck is nice and open. It'll really throw the grass out. You'll see from our videos, the State of Origin series, it's got a really good throwing deck over there. Right, I'm going to drop the deck down so we can look underneath it a bit. Okay, so it goes without saying that a machine like this will have greasable mandrels. It does, they all do. But what makes the Ferris mandrel unique is the size. This is a 10-inch cast iron mandrel. Every mandrel housing has 4 bearings in it, roller tapered bearings of course, and they are built really strong from that cast iron material. So basically you can go and hit whatever you want with this, and that mandrel is going to stand up to the punishment you give the machine. The other thing I like about the deck, it's 10 gauge fabricated deck. But the other thing that's super good about it is in some points on the deck, it's double 10 gauge. That means that there is 2 plates of steel to give you that extra thickness for your cutting deck. And they haven't put it all over the deck, so the deck doesn't add any weight. It only adds strength where you need it most, which is on the front of your deck, the welded edges, and on the top plates over there. They've got that double thick steel. That gives you extra wear and tear as well on the machine. Obviously the blades in this machine have all got the round holes, so you're able to hit something that's not a star locating pattern or anything like that, which will cause a stripping out of the mandrel shaft. It's a round hole, gives you that bit of give if you are going to be hitting some rough stuff. Okay, the other thing about the deck, it's a 4-point linkage. What does that mean? It simply means the deck attaches in 4 places. 1 on each side, so 1 on the front, 1 on the other side, 1 on the rear, 1 on the other side. Easy to adjust. I really like it. They've got adjustable points over here and here, and if you have a close look at Ferris, you'll notice that everywhere you can adjust has got a grease nipple. This machine has got lots of grease nipples, making sure you can, wherever you're adjusting something, you can grease it, you can maintain it. It's really good from that point of view. So everything is greasable and is adjustable. Looking at the front of the deck, if we have a look at the caster wheels, you'll notice on some other brands, they're only held on by 1 bracket. This is what we call a double gusseted bracket. So there is 2 sides to the bracket. All the wheels are supported with double gussets on the front and on either side. The deck is an ICD deck, so it does come with a striping kit. It's not available on all models, but on most models they have a striping kit as an optional accessory, or it comes standard with the machine. This one is standard. What does a striping deck do? It allows you to get that finish on your lawn that will actually look like you've striped it. So it cuts it in 2 different ways. So your grass has that lovely pattern to it. If ever you look at a good cricket field or a football field, you'll see the striping. This machine does the striping for you. Okay, let's talk about the operator platform and what we've got. We have 2 fuel tanks here, 21 liters a side. That click you here is the ratchet. You cannot over tighten the fuel tanks. Nice to have. And they have a nice wide filler, so you don't get petrol spilt all over your machine. If we have a look at Ferris, these are the only things which are plastic on the machine. These are polymer though. They're a heavy duty plastic. They don't wear, and of course they give you that little bit of lighter weight on the machine and a nice finish to the machine. Operator platform, easy to access. You got your throttle over here, you got your blading gauge, and your fuel tank gauges are right where your eyes are, either side. So you can tell exactly where you are with your fuel gauge very quickly. Just talking on the fuel, it's easy to swap between the left and the right tank. It's just behind the operator seat. So you just literally lean back, turn to the right or the left to access whichever fuel tank you are when you're mowing. So that can all be done while you're on the machine without you getting off. I like that, easy to use. Armrests are moving up and down, very comfortable seat, nice. Now you'll notice other brands have suspension on their seat and all sorts of things. That's great. Why doesn't Ferris has it? We don't need it. We don't need suspension on the seat because the whole platform is in suspension. So you don't need to be dialing any suspension on your seat. The platform does that, and it automatically takes into account your different weights, which is nice. Like I said, it is adjustable, but it doesn't matter the weight of the operator. The seat is always going to be the same. The frame is suspended, which is the nice thing about Ferris. Okay, let's lift up the seat, and we might just bring you around and have a closer look. So looking underneath the machine, the first thing we see over here, where my finger's pointing, is 2 reservoirs, 1 for each drive. This is not a hydraulic drive, it is a hydrostatic, which means the wheel pump and motor is in 1 unit and there's 1 for each rear wheel. You can see them here where I'm pointing to. This is one of the drives. It's a ZT 5400 drive, and it says, and I'll say it again, 19.3 kilometers an hour is what this machine does. You'll notice the big 9-inch fan on top. Why does Ferris run a hydrostatic drive and not a hydraulic drive? The reason is very simple. Maintenance and the ability to cut down on the leaking points from a hydraulic system. Hydraulic systems are good. They are quite aggressive when you drive them, which is a bit of a drawback, and they have a lot of hoses. And the more hoses you have, the more chance you have of a leaking drive. On this, we have 2 hoses going to the reservoir. These are really low pressure hoses. They don't carry any high pressure oils, and so they don't have a chance of leaking. They're easily sealed on the drives and on the tanks over here, the overflow tanks. So that is where the hoses go to, and then of course, because they are ZT 5400 drives, they're fully serviceable, i.e. you can change the oil on these drives, and that's simply an oil filter removal. Change the oil filter and change the oil. So very easy to use. I like the drive system in it. It's very responsive, but it's nice to drive as well. It's not too aggressive. Okay, let's talk about the levers for a second. You can see the levers over here, the steering levers. What makes Ferris different to every other brand? It's the bearings. Inside, it's going to be quite hard to see with the camera, but there is a housing over there. I'll pull my hand away so you can see where the housing is. It's right over here. And that housing over there is a cast iron housing with a grease point, like everything else in this machine. And it has a bearing inside. Why is that so great? What's so good about that? Well, I'll tell you. The reason why it's good is because that allows the levers to always have very little play in it. So you can see when you feel a new zero turn, you'll see there's very little play in the steering lever. It's nice and firm. With a bush, that'll wear over time. So after 50 hours use, 100 hours use, you start feeling those levers flopping around. You won't get that problem with the Ferris because the levers are connected to the drives with a bearing in a cast iron case. So you will always have that new feel steering on your Ferris when it's hundreds of hours old, which is really cool. So those are a few cool features under the seat. Obviously, being a commercial machine, we have rollover protection, nothing too fancy about that. And it does have that seat belt as well, which you can put across the operator so you don't fall out the machine when you're mowing over some of that ground or on an angle. Just keeps you in the seat nice and easily over there. Right, moving to the back of the machine. We're going to talk about the powerhouse of the machine, the engine. Well, first off, let's just have a quick look over here. This is your rear suspension. You can see it there, nice and heavy duty, running on a really big rear tire over there. And that's the suspension that really also, you can see it working over there, just like the shocks on your car, but the frame is separate from the actual machine, the actual wheels. Very good, works very, very well on the rear suspension as well. Right, let's talk about the motor. For all those people out there who like the Kawasaki engine, this is every bit as good, if not better. The reason why, built in Japan, built by Briggs & Stratton under the brand Vanguard, which is their top of the range, best engine that they make. The thing that's really great about this, it's got obviously your oil cooler on the side over here, but it is an EFI engine, okay? Electronic fuel injection has made its way into our industry now, and you're going to be seeing more and more of these engines around. The EFI that Briggs has developed is a closed system EFI. Basically, without getting too technical, it means that very little goes wrong with the system, and it's easy to diagnose and maintain any faults on the system itself, okay? Fully diagnosable, very easy to work on. The beauty about EFI, This is a 37 horsepower big block EFI engine. The beauty about EFI is it cuts down on fuel consumption. It is 25% less fuel consumption than the standard petrol engine. Not only that, because there's no carburetor, there's no choke. Your power is instantaneous. All that you do is turn the key, the EFI will prime its system, it fires automatically no matter where you are in that rev range, and then if you go from idle to full power, it's an instantaneous pickup. The 37 big block, we've used this machine on a 71 and a 62-inch cut. It is brilliant. It works very well, thick grass, short grass, it doesn't matter. You don't lose speed in that longer grass. It's an engine which has lots of grunt for this frame and works very, very, very well. Okay, the other thing on top of the engine, on the engine you'll notice this air filter. For those of you that know zero turns, you're familiar with this. It's just a Donaldson air filter. The beauty about it is it's very easy to maintain, and it keeps that engine really well protected with dual filtration elements in there. You'll notice the back of the zero turn is very well protected. It's got a really thick tubular steel bumper bar over here, and it's quite well enclosed, which means that when you're mowing along fence lines or near trees or things like that, there's very little that can actually be affected with the engine. It can hit the engine, which is nice. It's well maintained there. Just going back to the rear tires on the machine, these are 26-inch tires, 26 by 12. That is one of the biggest rear tires you can get in the industry. The thing I like about that is obviously traction, ground speed, and stability. These tires provide all of those in abundance, so something to really look at. They're great rear tires on the machine. And there we go, there you have it. So hopefully you learned a little bit about Ferris today, and I strongly recommend any of you who are considering buying a zero turn of decent quality, have a look at Ferris. It's a really good brand, and make sure you give it a test drive, because it's one of the best drives you'll ever have in the industry on a zero turn. Thanks very much for watching.